Hi, I'm Duke,
I'm Alex.
and we're going to talk about Dishonored and why I think it's not that great of a game.
And why I think it's actually a pretty dang cool game.
In my opinion, it should be a story-driven game. It's along the lines of BioShock and like Uncharted. It's not about the multiplayer, obviously, because there is none. And so it's more about like, oh, here's this sweet narrative that you get to like interact with and be immersed into. But personally, I think the story isn't good enough for you to be immersed into it, you know? Like, I think that the story is pretty simplistic. It's really not that complicated. The twist is super obvious.
I'll totally agree with you on that. The story is very simple. It's not hard to follow. I'm not really immersed in the characters at all. I don't find myself really caring about
attachment to anyone because you killed everyone every single time you could. So like that's just further example of why it's not.
Yeah, I didn't find myself attached like I was to like Dr. Steinman or Xander Cohen from BioShock at all. I didn't really care about their histories or anything like that. But I do believe that they did a good job of fleshing the environment out with things like all the little notes left around in the books. I thought that was cool. That added to the story, and if you spent the time reading that stuff, it was actually pretty cool. It would have like whaler songs. It would have stuff about how they actually extract the whale oil from the whales, and I thought that was just some really cool background stuff that is not necessarily the actual story, which is kind of boring. That doesn't get really good until about halfway through, but it's still some pretty cool stuff.
Okay, but I feel like that the whole reading things, that's been done before, and that's not a hit on Dishonored. That's just, I think the whole reading things in and of itself is kind of a hit and miss for different audiences. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of sitting there and reading all these things, so arguably that's why I don't like those things. Like Mass Effect did it, and I never read any of those.
Yeah, I didn't read it in Mass Effect.
I did listen to the BioShock audio logs, but that was because I could listen to it while I was doing things, and I would actually, and they were interesting. The voicing, I don't know, whatever it's called, it was really compelling, and you really like got drawn into what was going on inside those. I don't get as drawn in with reading, but I mean, if you're one of those people, then maybe it works for you. I don't think it's really that great.
It's definitely a less elegant way of the BioShock audio logs.
Stay tuned, we're gonna keep arguing about this.
But seriously, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
No, you're wrong.
The whole point of the game is that that's not the whole point, but one of the biggest like draw factors of the game is that you get to play through each level in very unique ways. You get to do no kills, you can go through special areas. I think that while that is incredibly interesting, I don't think that it completely is like delivering no, it delivers. I think it's just not really that great. It's like trying to be open world, but it's not. That's how I feel about it. It's like, oh hey, we're like 10 seconds away from being a completely open world game where you can jump from like the rooftop to the water and it's like completely open world. But instead of doing that, let's just break it up into different parts and different little areas.
I like that. I like the way Dishonored did it because it has the feeling of an open world game with all the exploration because the levels are huge, but it also maintains the focus that a linear game does, where you feel like you're constantly working toward this goal rather than being inundated with a million things to do.
But while you're constantly going towards these goals, you already know you go off into other areas. Well, okay, hold on. We're gonna bring this up. Zombies.
They're not zombies. Oh my god.
It's like, oh hey, it's a plague, but really they're just an excuse to have some zombie type character.
But they're just.
What makes them not zombies besides the fact that they're sick and they're
people who are like super
around.
plaguey. They're like super like decked out with the plague, so like obviously they're gonna walk around all moaning and stuff because of the plague.
No, if you're super sick, you don't go outside.
They're not. They're in their
If you had
respective buildings.
Horrible illness, you just stay in bed. Why would you be walking around? Why would you be trying to bite people? It's just a flimsy excuse to have a zombie type thing.
I would agree with you if they were a larger part of the story. There's oh my god, there's such a small facet of the game. You run into them maybe like 2 or 3 times and it's not like, oh, Reaper attack, everybody get them.
But it's still,
It's such a small facet that I think it's so negligible to complain
But you can, when you're playing through the game and you're like, wait, what, zombies? Like, it takes you out because you're just like, what?
I didn't think Hey Zombies because I had read all of the stuff that was the letters and the books in game that are like, oh, these are weepers. They got
you should just run
super
ahead.
plague,
Just
blah, blah,
skip all
blah.
that. All right, well,
Let's agree to disagree.
agree on that. Okay.
So that was our debate about Dishonored. Send us an email at videogamehourlive@texasstudenttv.com to say who won. Obviously
Your
me,
opinions,
but your
you know,
opinion.
we're not going to be changing each other's opinions anytime soon. But, email us. Tell us what you think.
Thanks for tuning in.